I was destined to become an artist. When I was young, my mother told me, the preschool teacher told her that I had talent. And then, as I grew up, I was told, you want to be an artist because that way you can be home with your babies. Well, I wasn't so sure about that, but it turned out that I was home doing my art, and I had to have somebody watch my kids because I couldn't work and watch them. So I found out early on that I needed to have a housekeeper, nanny, and even that wasn't easy because I would be working on a project and then my kids would be outside my door banging, Mom, Mom! And I had to be the problem solver. And so we had this ruse where she would tap on the door, let's see if Mommy is there. And I would go in the closet. She'd open the door, kids, look, Mommy's not home. And that was great, except if I had to go out to the bathroom. So I had to have a bucket in my room there because I couldn't leave. This is TMI, I know, but it's absolutely true. It was fun as my kids got older to go to their classrooms. I had painted seashells for one of my clients, a series of prints. And all the kids wanted to know, how do you do sand? So I had a seashell outline and I saved all the old toothbrushes I could to show them how to splatter and make the sand look like sand. And then I had painted butterflies, and the kids loved that, and we'd have outlines and they would color them in. I share this because there's so many prophecies, not just the prophecy of my mother telling me I'd be an artist, but also the fact that I had these images, which I will share in a moment. It even got more complicated when I had a deadline and I worked all night and Federal Express was coming to pick it up. And I went out of the room because I was done. But when I came in, my younger son had a marker and he was coloring over my painting that was, I know, I was livid. He still remembers because he says, oh, Mom, I'm sorry. But I had an electric eraser, solvent, I was able to fix it. So I learned all these techniques. I certainly wasn't sure about being an artist, but the stuff with my kids was definitely fun. I had waited 8 years to have children. And even now, when my kids are older, I remind myself how I still enjoyed sharing with my teenage son. We went to visit Tillamook. I did all of their ice cream sandwiches and bars. I did not do their cartons of ice cream. And we went to tour the factory of that dairy company and learn all their secrets. And I was treated like a VIP. And he says, that was the best mac and cheese I ever had at their restaurant. So that was great. Well, my destiny as an artist didn't come about like I just assumed, because in my last year of college, I was still undeclared. I didn't know that I'd make it as an artist. To make money and pursue that seemed kind of out of reach. But I had two wonderful special illustration teachers. The first one, named Nancy, is still my friend to this day. And she gave me a C on my first assignment, and I was like, oh my God, what do I need to do to get better? And from that point forward, I worked my tail off. And one day after class, she said to me, you are going to be a very successful artist. And I said, really? I wrote it in my diary, which I saved. And I treasure that she told me that. The other teacher was a working professional, and he went to a medical magazine company in LA, Peterson Publishing, and they gave a real assignment to the class. They had different medical magazines, and the one that they had was a cardiovascular pulmonary magazine, CBP.
Oh my goodness.
And they said, that if your student is able to do a good job and we buy it, we'll pay them $400. So I went to the library, I researched it, and my painting was chosen, and I got paid $400, and that was a lot back in 1980. So I was pretty thrilled, and that's kind of where my career began. I waited 8 years to have children, and my firstborn son, Jason, was born with a congenital heart defect. So it was actually very true what my mother had said, that I was home, because he had to go to the ER so many times, and I could oversee his care with his nanny. And one of the greatest thrills was I won an award at the Society of Illustrators Los Angeles show, and he was able to go with me.
Aww.
And that's a picture of him, and that's the award for my not my Nestle Crunch, I had that too, Snickers bar, which was a postcard that brought me a lot of work because it made art directors hungry. Not long after that award, Jason needed another heart surgery, and he did not make it. So he died, and I worked as an artist, and I continued. And my tears would splash from my eyes onto my artwork. I had to cover everything because otherwise it would be ruined. I threw myself into the care of my other children, and I threw myself into my art. And that's where I was circling back to those images. The seashell, it turned out later in my life when I found music that the seashell became a metaphor for something that's beautiful left behind when the creature is gone. And the seashells was one, and then there were the butterflies. To me, a butterfly, it could be a metaphor for death, but for me it was a metaphor about healing, that my grief was being in a cocoon, and when I was able to heal, I could fly again. And then there was the heart that I had painted so many years ago. And the story about that heart, it gives me chills. But first of all, there's the metaphor. To me, I opened my heart, and that is actually what led me to healing. I share my heart. I love to tell stories, I love to sing songs, and I love art to share my message. I decided it would help my healing journey to give a gift to the cardiologist that was so wonderful. He was heartbroken that my son died, and he spoke at the funeral. I would never, ever forget that. And I made a trip to the hospital where Jason had died. It was very difficult. I went into his office, and I presented him with the painting from all those years ago that I had done for my class. He was very, very touched. And he told me he found a spot on the wall that he would be hanging it up. And it was part of my healing journey to do that. But what gave me chills was when he said to me, "Do you realize that the heart you painted has a defect similar to Jason's?" And that is my story. Thank you for letting me share mine.